Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive.
Yeah,
Today, we're going to be talking about something I think a lot of people maybe don't think too much about,
right.
and that is shoes.
Yes.
We're going to be focusing specifically on extra depth footwear and really kind of getting into the benefits for long-term foot health.
Absolutely. And you know what's so interesting is that we often overlook the impact our shoes have on our feet
Yeah.
until we start experiencing problems.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm really excited to dive into this topic today.
Yeah, me too. And to help us get there, we have this article called Deeper Shoes, an ultimate guide to extra depth footwear.
Fantastic resource.
Yeah, okay, so maybe let's just start with the basics.
Okay.
What are extra depth shoes?
So extra depth shoes, as the name suggests, are shoes that provide more space
Okay.
in the toe box and throughout the shoe. So really it's about giving your feet
Okay,
that extra room to breathe and move comfortably.
gotcha. So, when I think about shoes with extra space,
Mm-hmm.
I think about like those orthopedic shoes that that I've seen sometimes, and I'm like, oh man, am I really gonna have to like sacrifice style
Right.
to be
Well, and
comfortable?
that's where things have really changed.
Okay.
You don't have to sacrifice style anymore
Okay.
because extra depth footwear now comes in a wide range of styles. So you can find sneakers, you can find sandals,
Wow.
dress shoes, all with that extra depth.
So I can be stylish.
Absolutely.
Do it.
Happy feet and stylish feet.
Perfect.
It's the best of both worlds.
I love it. Okay, so the article also talks about some specific features that make extra depth shoes unique.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that we should be looking for?
Well, one of the key features, and I think this is something that many people can relate to, is the roomy toe box.
Right.
And that extra space in the toe box allows your toes to spread out naturally, which can really help prevent blisters.
Okay.
Corns, calluses, all those things that can develop.
Yeah,
When your toes are cramped together in a tight shoe.
totally.
Yeah.
I've had my fair share of blisters from, wearing shoes that were a little too pointy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the toe box. There are other features like adjustable closures.
Yeah.
Like Velcro straps or laces, which allow you to customize the fit throughout the day.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So if you have swelling in your feet,
Right.
you can adjust the shoes accordingly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then also removable insoles. So if you need to wear custom orthotics,
Okay.
you can easily swap them out.
That makes sense.
And then also look for shoes that have a supporter design that promotes proper foot alignment.
So it sounds like they're really putting a lot of thought
Absolutely.
into designing these shoes. It's not just about,
It's not just a bigger shoe. It's
Yeah.
about addressing specific needs and providing that targeted support.
wow. And speaking of targeted support, the article mentions some shoes even have heat moldable insoles.
Yes.
So you can get like a truly customized fit.
That's right. You can actually mold the insole to the exact shape of your foot, which can make a huge difference in terms of comfort and support.
So I'm assuming with all these features and the focus on foot health, there are probably a lot of different types of extra depth shoes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the article actually showcases quite a few examples for both men and women.
Are there any that kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, there were a couple that caught my eye. For men, I noticed they had a work shoe
Okay.
that was designed with extra depth and a soft toe, which I thought was really interesting.
That sounds great for people who are, on their feet all day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whether you're working in construction or healthcare,
Right.
if you're on your feet all day, those shoes would be a great option.
And what about for women?
For women, there was a shoe that really stood out to me. It was a triple extra depth shoe.
Triple extra depth.
Triple extra depth, which I thought was amazing because, for women who experience severe swelling
Wow.
or need to wear bandages,
Okay.
this could be a real game changer.
Wow. So it's cool to see that they're really making shoes that are, specific to different.
Absolutely. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we've been talking about all these benefits, and I'm curious, is there any research
Yeah.
that actually supports?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And, it's one thing to talk about the features and how they sound good in theory,
Yeah.
but do we actually have any evidence that these shoes actually deliver on their promises?
Yeah.
So there's a study that I came across. It's called Effectiveness of Off-the-Shelf Extra Depth Footwear in Reducing Foot Pain in Older People.
Okay.
And what's great about the study is that it was a randomized controlled trial,
Yeah.
which means they randomly assigned participants to either wear the extra depth shoes or to continue wearing their usual footwear.
Gotcha.
So it's a pretty rigorous study design.
Okay. So what did they find?
The results were really impressive.
Okay.
The group that wore the extra depth shoes reported significant reductions in foot pain.
Wow.
And here's the kicker. Okay. They were almost 8 times more likely to
Wow.
say that their foot pain had moderately or markedly improved
Compared.
compared to the group that didn't wear the extra depth shoes.
Wow. So that's like a pretty big difference.
It is a very big difference. And, that really speaks to the fact that these shoes aren't just a gimmick.
Right.
They're actually backed by science.
Yeah, that's huge. I think a lot of people,
Yeah.
are skeptical when they hear about these things.
Yeah.
So to have those
Yeah.
studies to back it up, I think that's huge.
Absolutely. And what's even more fascinating is when we start to look at the broader picture of footwear design
Okay.
and how the science behind shoes has evolved over time.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you think about it, the science and technology that goes into designing even a simple pair of shoes.
I know, right? I feel like most of the time I just kind of grab whatever shoes look cute.
Right.
I don't really think about how it's affecting my feet.
And that's where we run into problems,
Yeah.
because a lot of modern shoes prioritize style over function.
Right. And that can lead to a whole host of foot problems down the road.
Okay, so how do extra depth shoes fit into all of this? Like, how do they address those issues?
Well, think about it this way. Extra depth shoes, particularly the ones designed for orthopedic purposes,
Okay.
share a lot of principles with athletic shoes.
Interesting.
They're both engineered to support the foot's natural structure, absorb impact, and minimize stress on the joints.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it that way, but that makes a lot of sense.
Right. And just like in the world of athletic footwear, there's this constant push to innovate and improve designs in the extra depth category as well.
So they're not just like, sticking with the same old thing.
Absolutely not. Designers are constantly working to create extra depth shoes that are not only functional and supportive, but also stylish and appealing.
That's awesome.
You don't have to choose between healthy feet and fashionable footwear anymore.
Thank goodness, because I was not about to go back to those clunky orthopedic shoes from like the 80s.
Nobody wants that. So it sounds like the industry is really evolving to meet the growing demand for shoes that are good for our feet.
It really is, and I think more and more people are starting to prioritize foot health, which is driving this innovation.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the article also mentioned how these shoes can be particularly beneficial for people with certain medical conditions.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So for individuals with diabetes, for example, extra depth shoes can be crucial in preventing foot ulcers and other complications.
Why is that?
Well, diabetes can often lead to nerve damage in the feet,
Okay.
which can make it difficult to detect injuries, and extra depth shoes provide that extra cushioning and reduce pressure on the feet.
So it's kind of creating like a protective environment
Exactly.
for sensitive feet.
Exactly. And for people with arthritis, extra depth shoes can help to alleviate pain and improve mobility
Okay,
by reducing friction and pressure on those inflamed joints.
that makes sense. And what about for people who experience swelling in their feet and legs?
That's another condition where extra depth shoes can be incredibly helpful. The adjustable closures and the roomy design can really accommodate swelling and provide a more comfortable fit.
So it's not just about addressing existing conditions, it's also about potentially preventing future problems.
Absolutely. And when you think about the long-term costs, both financially and in terms of our health,
All right.
investing in supportive footwear can really pay off. It's like preventative healthcare for your feet.
I love that analogy. It really changes the way you think about shoes.
Exactly. It's not just about finding a solution for an existing problem.
Right.
It's about taking a proactive approach to foot health.
So it sounds like there's a lot to consider when choosing the right pair of extra depth shoes.
There is, and the article actually provides some great tips on how to make the best choice for your needs.
Such as?
Well, they recommend getting professionally fitted if possible,
Okay.
especially if you have any specific foot concerns or conditions.
So it's like going to a tailor for a suit.
Exactly. You want to make sure you get the perfect fit. And they also emphasize the importance of trying on shoes later in the day,
Okay.
when your feet are at their largest, because you want to make sure they fit comfortably even if your feet tend to swell throughout the day.
That's a good point.
And another important tip is to bring any orthotics or inserts that you use when trying on shoes
Oh, yeah, good.
to make sure they fit properly and don't create any pressure points.
So we've talked a lot about fit. What about things like materials and design?
Yeah, materials are important too. They recommend choosing shoes made from breathable materials,
Okay.
like leather or mesh, which can help to regulate temperature and prevent moisture buildup.
That's huge, especially if you have sweaty feet or live in a hot climate?
Absolutely. And when it comes to design, look for shoes with good arch support, cushioning in the heel and forefoot, and a wide, stable base.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot more to consider than just, picking a shoe that looks nice.
It is, but the article really does a great job of breaking down these considerations and providing clear guidance. It's a fantastic resource for anyone who's interested in learning more about extra depth footwear.
It's like having a personal shoe consultant right there in your pocket.
Exactly. And it really highlights the fact that choosing the right footwear is not just about aesthetics, it's an investment in your health and well-being.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of the benefits and features of extra depth shoes, but are there any potential downsides or things to watch out for?
Well, that's a really good question because while extra depth shoes offer a lot of benefits, it's important to remember that, like anything else, there are some things to keep in mind.
Okay, like what?
For example, if the shoes are too loose, they might not provide enough support, and that could actually lead to instability or even increase the risk of falls.
Oh, wow. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and on the flip side, if the shoes are too stiff, they could restrict your movement and cause discomfort.
So it sounds like it's all about finding that right balance.
Exactly. Not too loose, not too tight, just right.
Yeah. The Goldilocks zone.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing to consider is the intended use of the shoes. An extra depth shoe designed for casual wear might not be appropriate for, say, running or hiking.
Right. It's like trying to use a butter knife to cut a steak.
Exactly. You need the right tool for the job. And the article really stresses the importance of selecting shoes that align with your lifestyle and activity level.
So if you're not sure, it's probably a good idea to talk to a podiatrist or a shoe specialist.
Absolutely. They can give you personalized advice and make sure you get the right shoes for your needs.
So it's like going to see a doctor for your feet.
Exactly. It's all about proactive foot care.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about the science behind extra depth shoes, the benefits they offer, and even some potential considerations. What are some key takeaways you think our listeners should keep in mind?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that our footwear choices really do matter. They can have a huge impact on our long-term foot health.
It's easy to just kind of ignore foot pain or discomfort, but it's important to remember that those can be warning signs of bigger problems down the road.
Absolutely. It's like ignoring a small crack in your windshield. It might seem minor at first, but if you don't address it, it can quickly become a major issue.
And that's where extra depth shoes come in. They offer a way to be proactive about foot care by providing the space, support, and cushioning that our feet need.
Exactly. And we've seen how these shoes can be particularly helpful for people with certain medical conditions like diabetes, arthritis, and edema.
Right. But even if you don't have any specific foot problems, just choosing shoes that are good for your feet can make a huge difference in your overall well-being.
Absolutely. And I think the study we discussed earlier really highlighted that point. The fact that people who wore extra depth shoes were 8 times more likely to experience significant pain reduction. That's pretty powerful evidence.
Yeah, it really shows that these shoes aren't just some kind of fad.
Yeah.
They can actually make a real difference in people's lives. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of extra depth footwear. I know I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners have too.
It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you, and I hope everyone takes away some valuable insights about the importance of taking care of their feet.
And of course, a big thank you to the article, Deeper Shoes, an ultimate guide to extra depth footwear, for providing so much great information.
It's a great resource.
It is. If you're interested in learning more about extra depth footwear, I highly recommend checking it out.
And until next time, happy stepping.
That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.